processes and reproduce the seed of the wheat as the ultimate form of their own growth. Other numbers multiplied by themselves produce other numbers, but only 5 and 6 multiplied by themselves represent and retain their original number as the last figure in their products. The pentad represents all the superior and inferior beings. It is sometimes referred to as the Hierophant, or the priest of the mysteries, because of its connection with the spiritual ethers, by means of which mystic development is attained. Keywords of the pentad are reconciliation, alternation, marriage, immortality, cordiality, providence, and sound. Among the deities who partook of the nature of the pentad were Pallas, Nemesis, Bubastia Bast, Venus, Androgynia, Cytherea, and the messengers of Jupiter. The tetrad, the elements plus the monad, equals the pentad. The Pythagoreans taught that the elements of earth, fire, air, and water were permeated by a substance called ether, the basis of vitality and life. Therefore, they chose the 5-pointed star, or pentagram, as the symbol of vitality, health, and inner penetration. It was customary for the philosophers to conceal the element of earth under the symbol of a dragon, and many of the heroes of antiquity were told to go forth and slay the dragon. Hence, they drove their sword, the monad, into the body of the dragon, the tetrad. This resulted in the formation of the pentad, a symbol of the victory of the spiritual nature over the material nature. The 4 elements are symbolized in the early biblical writings as the 4 rivers that poured out of Garden of Eden. The elements themselves are under the control of the composite cherubim of Ezekiel. The Pythagoreans held the hexad, 6, to represent, as Clement of Alexandria conceived, the creation of the world according to both the prophets and the ancient mysteries. It was called by the Pythagoreans the perfection of all the parts. This number was particularly sacred to Orpheus, and also to the Fate, Lachesis, and the Muse, Theia. It was called the form of forms, the articulation of the universe, and the maker of the soul. Among the Greeks, harmony and the soul were considered to be similar in nature, because all souls are harmonic. The hexad is also the symbol of marriage, because it is formed by the union of 2 triangles, one masculine and the other feminine. Among the keywords given to the hexad are time, for it is the measure of duration; panacea, because health is equilibrium, and the hexad is a balance number; the world, because the world, like the hexad, is often seen to consist of contraries by harmony; omnisufficient, because its parts are sufficient for totality, 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 6; and weird, because it contains the elements of immortality. By the Pythagoreans the heptad, 7, was called worthy of veneration. It was held to be the number of religion, because man is controlled by 7 celestial spirits to whom it is proper for him to make offerings. It was called the number of life, because it was believed that human creatures born in the 7th month of embryonic life usually lived, but those born in the 8th month often died. One author called it the motherless virgin, Minerva, because it was nor born of a mother but out of the crown, or the head of the father, the monad. Keywords of the heptad are fortune, occasion, custody, control, government, judgment, dreams, voices, sounds, and that which leads all things to their end. Deities whose attributes were expressed by the heptad were Osiris, Mars, and Clio, one of the Muses. Among many ancient nations the heptad is a sacred number. The Elohim of the Jews were supposedly 7 in number. They were the spirits of the dawn, more commonly known as the archangels controlling the planets. The 7 archangels, with the 3 spirits controlling the sun in its threefold aspect, constitute the 10, the sacred Pythagorean decad. The mysterious Pythagorean tetractys, or 4 rows of dots, increasing from 1 to 4, was symbolic of the stages of creation. The great Pythagorean truth that all things in nature are regenerated through the decad, or 10, is subtly preserved in Freemasonry through these grips being affected by the uniting of 10 fingers, 5 on the hand of each person. The 3 spirit, mind, and soul descend into the 4 the world, the sum being the 7, or the mystic nature of man, consisting of a threefold spiritual body and a fourfold material form. These are symbolized by the cube, which has 6 surfaces and a mysterious 7th point within. The 6 surfaces are the directions north, east, south, west, up, and down. Or, front, back, right, left, above, and below. Or again, earth, fire, air, water, spirit, and matter. In the midst of these stands the One, which is the upright figure of man, from whose center in the cube radiate 6 pyramids. From this comes the great occult axiom: the center is the father of the directions, the dimensions, and the distances. The heptad is the number of the law, because it is the number of the makers of cosmic law, the 7 spirits before the throne. The ogdoad, 8, was sacred because it was the number of the first cube, which form had 8 corners, and was the only evenly even number under 10 1 - 2 - 4 - 8 - 4 - 2 - 1. Thus, the 8 is divided into 2 4s, each 4 is divided into 2 2s, and each 2 is divided into 2 1s, thereby re-establishing the monad. Among the keywords of the ogdoad are love, counsel, prudence, law, and convenience. Among the divinities partaking of its nature were Panharmonia, Rhea, Cybele, Cadm, Dindymene, Orcha, Neptune, Themis, and Euterpe, Muse. The ogdoad was a mysterious number associated with the Eleusinian mysteries of Greece and the Kabiri. It was called the Little Holy Number. It derived its form partly from the twisted snakes on the caduceus of Hermes and partly from the serpentine motion of the celestial bodies. Possibly also from the moon's nodes. The ennead, 9, was the first square of an odd number 3x3. It was associated with failure and shortcoming because it fell short of the perfect number 10 by 1. It was called the number of man, because of the 9 months of his embryonic life. Among its keywords are ocean and horizon, because to the ancients these were boundless. The ennead is the limitless number because there is nothing beyond it but the infinite 10. It was called boundary and limitation, because it gathered all numbers within itself. It was called the sphere of the air, because it surrounded the numbers as air surrounds the earth. Among the gods and goddesses who partook in greater or less degree of its nature were Prometheus, Vulcan, Juno, the sister and wife of Jupiter, Pn, and Aglaia, Tritogenia, Curtes, Proserpine, Hyperion, and Terpsichore, Muse. The 9 was looked upon as evil, because it was an inverted 6. According to the Eleusinian mysteries, it was the number of the spheres through which the consciousness passed on its way to birth. Because of its close resemblance to the spermatozoon, the 9 has been associated with germinal life. The decad, 10, according to the Pythagoreans, is the greatest of numbers, not only because it is the tetractys, the 10 dots, but because it comprehends all arithmetic and harmonic proportions. Pythagoras said that 10 is the nature of number, because all nations reckon to it, and when they arrive at it they return to the monad. The decad was called both heaven and the world, because the former includes the latter. Being a perfect number, the decad was applied by the Pythagoreans to those things relating to age, power, faith, necessity, and the power of memory. It was also called unwearied, because, like God, it was tireless. The Pythagoreans divided the heavenly bodies into 10 orders. They also stated that the decad perfected all numbers and comprehended within itself the nature of odd and even, moved and unmoved, good and ill. They associated its power with the following deities: Atlas, for it carried the numbers on its shoulders, Urania, Mnemosyne, the sun, Phanes, and the one god. The decimal system can probably be traced back to the time when it was customary to reckon on the fingers, these being among the most primitive of calculating devices and still in use among many aboriginal peoples. The human body in symbolism. The oldest, the most profound, the most universal of all symbols is the human body. The Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, and Hindus considered a philosophical analysis of man's true nature to be an indispensable part of ethical and religious training. The mysteries of every nation taught that the laws, elements, and powers of the universe were epitomized in the human constitution. That everything which existed outside of man had its analog within man. The universe, being immeasurable in its immensity and inconceivable in its profundity, was beyond mortal estimation. Even the gods themselves could comprehend but a part of the inaccessible glory which was their source. When temporarily permeated with divine enthusiasm, man may transcend for a brief moment the limitations of his own personality and behold in part the celestial effulgence in which all creation is bathed. but even in his periods of greatest illumination man is incapable of imprinting upon